Well, g'day curd nerds. G'day curd nerds. Well, 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 g'day curd nerds. Welcome to another Ask the Cheeseman. This is episode 103. That's 103. That's a lot of episodes under our belt. And thank you once again for being here on the channel and asking your cheese questions. It's good to see Kim's online. That's absolutely fantastic. Kim is the moderator today and also my lovely wife. We've got two dogs in the room, so if anybody starts barking, don't worry about that. Okay, just some housekeeping to start off with. There were no new patrons this week and no new YouTube members, which is a bit of a surprise, but that's okay. And thank you to all the people that support me financially currently. I really do appreciate it. The video this week, when I get off my bottom and make it, is going to be spicy melty cheese. So many people have asked for me to make a melty cheese similar to the American cheese that I made, which is by far my most popular video. Very strange. A very popular video over the last, probably 6 months. It's just been going gangbusters. So I will be making something out of my sorry, I lost concentration then, and we get a super chat straight off the bat, and that's for Ruth. 2 seconds, Ruth, and I'll answer that. Thank you for your kind $5 super chat. So I had some triple pepper jack. Something's not going right. Hang on. Computer says no. There we go. Much better. All right. So thanks. There's your gold star, Ruth. So I got some triple pepper jack and some provolone that I'm going to melt together, and we'll see what happens. So that's the video that'll be up this week, and I'm getting some milk delivered on Friday, I hope, fingers crossed. I've got to organise that with the distributor, and we'll see what I come up with this weekend. It'll be a labour of love and take a long time to make. Anyway, back to Ruth's question. She says, please, Gavin, please review raw milk guidelines. When is it necessary to do low temp, long hold, and when is it not? Thanks. Well, it's not a simple question. It's actually personal preference, Ruth. If you can trust the source of your raw milk that you get and you're comfortable that it's free from nasty bacteria and it's very, very fresh, so I'm talking at least, and it's been kept at, say, 4 degrees Celsius, and you want to... Sorry, I'll just turn that off. That's another one. Thank you. I'll get to that one in a sec. So if it's kept at 4 degrees Celsius and you use it within a day, then it's, it depends on the dairy, of course. But if you trust it, then it's fairly safe. If you've got your raw milk and you've had it for a couple of days, it'll start to acidify all by itself. So you may need to pasteurize it to kill any bad bacteria that may have crept in there. But yeah, it's personal preference. You can make cheese from raw milk. They've been doing it for many millennia. So you don't really have to worry about it too much. But if you have the raw milk for like 7 days, don't make cheese out of it. It'll probably clabber by then anyway and turn into like homemade cottage cheese all by itself. So your choice. There's no hard and fast rules. There is if you're going to sell it commercially, of course. Totally different kettle of fish. A lot of countries don't allow you to sell or make raw milk cheeses for commercial consumption. So you'll have to check that with your own food standards people over there in San Francisco. Ruth's second question was, when do you wash rind with stout or beer? Does the alcohol stay active? Oh, sorry. When you wash rind with beer or stout, does the alcohol stay active? Uh, by active, I'm not sure what you mean. It'll evaporate off of the surface of the cheese over time. So no, it won't be an alcoholic um, cheese. The alcohol evaporates, so there's no issues there. Okay, hope that answers your questions, Ruth, and thank you so much for your two $5 super chats. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's get on to some of the other questions. And sorry I haven't said hello, but there's just so many people. It's just crazy at the moment. Um, but big shout out to everybody who's there. Thank you very much. Just sip of coffee. Okay, so the first question of the day, other than Ruth's ones, John Possum says, "When are you going to smoke cheese?" Good question. When am I? Don't know, but I will get there. I've got a couple of likely candidates in the cheese fridge that aren't quite mature yet, but we'll wait for those, and I've got to find something suitable. I dare say there's probably something down down Bunnings, which is our local hardware store for cold smoking. I'm sure I can find something. I've got a lovely clay oven out the back that I can encapsulate the smoke in, so that won't be an issue. Okay. Northman says, "Good day, Gav." Well, g'day to you, Northman. What do you think is better maturation? What is better? Maturation boxes or a humidifier and temperature controller unit in the fridge? Well, I think you definitely need to have a temperature controller if you're using just a normal standard kitchen fridge. You absolutely have to have that. So that goes without saying. So what you also let me just think about this one. Look, I prefer to use maturation boxes, and it's because it's simpler. It really is. The fridge actually stays cleaner, so you don't have to worry too much about the mold build-up in the fridge and all that sort of stuff. So that's fairly simple. Humidifiers are very messy, so the inside of your fridge walls will be wet all the time, harbour molds quite easily, and they'll spread to the cheeses. So look, I tend to use maturation boxes. I find them much, much better. Okay, Michael says, "What is the sharpest cheddar you would recommend? Looking for the holy grail of sharpness, but not like blue cheese. I hate blue cheese." Okay, sharpest cheddar. Don't know. There's so many out there. So many great cheddars out there, and unfortunately, the traditional cheddars that are made in the UK don't often get exported here to Australia, so we can't really get them because some of them are made from raw milk, and there's a big hullabaloo about raw milk cheeses here in Australia, so that's a bit of an issue. So yeah, the only ones we get here are raw milk cheeses. Sorry, cheddar cheeses that are made in Australia. Um, there are some good ones, and call me a bit of a heathen, but the Cracker Barrel extra sharp that I had on the Cheese a Day challenge was very, very nice. It was true to its name, certainly very sharp. I think it was aged for 32 months or something. And look, I thought that was very good. Now, I know it's a brand name. It used to be owned by Kraft. But it's licensed to so many different big commercial dairies these days. But there are a lot better cheddars. But make your own. Make your own cheddar and wait for 2 years, and it'll be just as sharp and amazing. So that's what I recommend. Rob says, "My parmesan has been aging at 70 degrees Fahrenheit for 7 months, sealed in a cryovac, and now the outside is bronzed brown colour. The cheese tastes fine. I'm wondering what happened." Don't know. Um, I've only seen that sort of colour change in natural rind cheeses, and that tends to go like that because brown moulds build up over the surface as you wipe it with brine solution. But I haven't seen it in cheeses that have been in vacuum pack, so not sure. Um, Drew says, and hi Drew, how can you be sure the rind has formed on a cheese is sufficient before putting it into the ripening box? Really, Drew, the rind has to be fully closed, so no crevices or cracks before you age it. Now, it may dry out, especially with the cheddar style cheeses. Sometimes, if you don't press it hard enough, you'll get little fissures in the sides of the cheese. And when you air dry, as it dries, you'll find that the curd chunks themselves um, tend to be, they create little crack things. Um, so then, yeah, you just got to be careful to see if there's any mold build-ups in the cracks and all that sort of stuff. So just make sure that the rind is fully closed before you mature it. Okay. The next question is from Alex. Alex says, got some whey inside vacuum packed cheese. Is it normal? Look, a tiny bit is, but really there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be masses of moisture in the vacuum pack bag. So as long as you've pressed it sufficiently and you've air dried the cheese, rarely will there be any whey build up in the bag. Now I have known some cheeses like I matured provolone inside some vacuum packing. I don't know why I did it. It just because it was really moist, I think, and it wouldn't dry out. So I vacuum packed it, and then all of a sudden, over the course of about a week, because I was turning it weekly, as you do with your cheeses, um, spontaneously it just so much moisture just exploded out into the bag. So I'm not sure what happened there, but a little bit is okay. It's not the end of the world, and it won't kill your cheese. Sometimes it's a sign that your cheese will be fairly crumbly because moisture is being kind of sucked out of the cheese itself. Matthew says, tried making your feta recipe recently, and the brine at 10% still seems very salty compared with supermarket feta. Is there a way to draw the salt out? I heard that soaking it in milk may work. Indeed, it does. And 10% is the standard brine. Real Greek feta, not supermarket feta, unless it's from Greece, I suppose. Um, it is brined at the 10% brine solution for over 12 months, and that's when they call it a true feta. So, yeah, you can draw some of the salt out. Soak your cheese in milk um, for about 24 hours, and you'll find that you won't have any issues. And yeah, it'll be less saltier. Um, but you'll still find that the insides, because you've been soaking it there for a while, will be fairly salty still. It's very hard to get rid of it, and feta is very salty. Anyway, real feta. Okay, the Restless Cook says, what culture would I buy from your website? That is the same as Alpine D. A good one that I've got for Alpine style cheeses, in fact, many thermophilic cultures, is a blend that I use. It's a thermophilic, mesophilic blend, but more thermophilic than mesophilic. And that's the Sacco MOT 92. It's the thermophilic that I use, and it's mainly used for Alpine style cheeses. It's got 4 different cultures within that blend, and it does make a very, very nice Alpine cheese. So try that one, MOT 92. I think it's the only thermophilic culture I've got on the website, but that'll be rectified soon. Northman says, how did the Scottish yellow blue turn out? I think you're referring to the Shropshire cheese. It is turning out very well. It was supposed to mature for 6 months, and 6 months is not up yet. So I'm still turning it weekly. There's as you saw in the video, there's a crack in the cheese, and I have to be very careful when I turn it over. I don't want that crack to split all the way through the cheese. But yeah, it's maturing well. It's got a coating of blue mold all the way through it. So yeah, and all over the cheese as well, as you would expect with a blue cheese. I'm kind of in two minds to try and wrap it, but I don't know. It seems to be going okay. It's not going mushy or anything like that. So yeah, it's still very firm, which is good. Okay. Ruth says, "What's so special about a copper pot for Gruyere?" Um, Nothing more than that's the traditional way they made it, and maybe some of the copper ions leach into the milk. I don't know. But yeah, traditionally that's the AOC method of making Gruyere in Switzerland. They use copper pots, so they can, and that's one of the rules they set for making that AOC cheese. That's just so they get that flavour over and over again. Lewis says, "Hey Gavin, your stout cheddar video got me thinking. What would be safe to put in cheese in a similar way to add stout? Alcoholic beverages, fruit juices, sauces." Yeah, good question. Um, I would not put fruit juice because they'll ferment. Uh, I would not put any sauces as well. All those sort of things. Other alcoholic beverages like um, sherry or brandy or mead. Let me think. What else do they use? There's quite a few different things they put in alcoholic stuff that the um, they soak the curds in, but obviously then all drain it away. Now, if you're going to add sauces and all that sort of stuff, fruit juices stuff, they process it after the cheese is made. That's how they get all those things bitten, especially like fruit bits and all that. The Wensleydale with cranberries that I tried is a bit of an experiment. I'm pretty sure that's how they do it, and I have seen some videos on the Wensleydale Creamery. That is indeed how they make their fruit cheese. But yeah, look, there's better ways to add the fruit in than putting in with the curds like that. Those style cheddars don't tend to have the fruit added in. You'll notice that the cheeses that I put fruit in and stuff like that, and like chili peppers and stuff, are all stirred curd style sort of cheddars. So the jalapeno cheddar, which should be ready. Oh, no, I've eaten it. I think I can't remember. I've got a confused brain today, but yeah, jalapeno cheddar was a stirred curd cheddar, and it really lent itself well to having the jalapenos stirred through it. So that was good. The Wensleydale with cranberries was another, like a very crumbly sort of cheddar because you had to break the curd up all the time. That was easy to mix through. But a normal traditional cheddar with the finger blocks that you then press, it's very hard to put anything except infuse, some sort of alcoholic beverage into the curds. So I hope that answered your question sufficiently, mate. Thomas says, "What's my favourite cheese?" And the standard response is all the cheeses. I love all the cheeses. Ruth says, "Thanks, Gavin. That was what I meant about the alcohol." That's cool. No probs at all, Ruth. Have we got a Holly cam there? Oh, she's not. There you go, Holly. There she is. Holly the cheese dog. Very cool. Wave, Holly. All right, don't lick your bits. All right. Next question is Ruth says, "Does lipase change the pH?" Does adding lipase change pH? No, lipase. What it does, it changes it changes the fats into lipids. So that's what it does. It doesn't elevate the pH per se because it doesn't start acting on the cheese until it starts to break down. So during the cheese making process itself, it's the lactic bacteria that changes the pH of the milk. However, one thing to be careful when you do add lipase is that you will need to add a little bit more rennet. And you'll see that most of the recipes where I do use lipase, the rennet dose is probably 10% more, roughly. But yeah, just be aware of that. When you add lipase, it kind of dampens down the renneting action, the coagulation action. So just be careful of that. Okay, Jordan says, hello, Gavin, Kim, and fellow curd nerds. G'day, Jordan. My cheese cave seems to have a low humidity, so I placed my cotia in a maturation box, and it now seems to be too moist. Lots of liquids on the underside of the lid. Look, that happens. It just happens. That's why every week you've got to wipe all that moisture off. You will get it to about 90%, no problems at all in your maturation box, unless you've got one of those ones with a little pop top lid and it lets some of the moisture out. And I tend to have those open if I've got a really moist cheese and it starts getting lots of moisture on the lid. You just got to wipe it off, make sure it doesn't drip on the cheese. It's part of the affinage process. Kim says, we will begin to look for a smoker this week. Okay, boss. No problems at all. We'll get there. Okay. Craig says, hi, Gavin and Kim. Great to be on the chat. Have you made any stabilized camembert? And if so, what is its shelf life opposed to normal camembert? No, I haven't made a stabilized camembert, Craig, and I do have a recipe for it. I think it's in Gianna Caldwell's book, where she uses, instead of a mesophilic starter culture, she uses a thermophilic starter culture, is one of the options. And that makes the curd a lot firmer and, as you said, stabilizes the paste. So you'll get more of the supermarket-y style camembert than the French, very runny Normandy camembert. So that's the really only swap out. There's another method. So there's two stabilization methods. There's one using thermophilic starter culture, and the other one uses a washed curd method. So you wash the curds before you mold them into your camembert molds. All are actually in Gianniclus's book, which is very comprehensive. So that's the Mastering Artisan Cheese Making, I think, is the name of the book. Very good. I think we've got some in store still. But yeah, it's prompted me. I'll get a video going on that stable. I've been meaning to make it for quite a while. Stabilized paste. Because it'd be interesting to see the results compared to, say, the Little Bear video that I made and the very original camembert, where the camembert was so runny that it just went all over the cheese board. But it was very nice. But yeah, great. Thanks, Craig. Karen says, I made your kefili again yesterday. The sous vide was spot on for temperature increase over 10 minutes. My rind didn't knit as well as I would have liked. Can you help with any suggestions? Yes, indeed. So if you had checked out the stout video, stout cheddar video that I made, put up this weekend, you'll see I did a different cheddaring version. And that was to keep the entire slab intact. Now, kefili has a cheddaring process as well, very slight one. So because we're making such small amounts of cheese, then you can safely get away with the single slab sort of method. So, and keep that over a pot of either water, or I had whey that was already warm. Keep that over that and keep it warm. So when you go to press the cheese, you'll find that the rind knits together so much easier. Don't go over 38 degrees Celsius with your water, because that'll start to kill off the mesophilic starter cultures, and you don't want that at all. You want those to continue to eat the lactose in the milk during the pressing period as well, and during definitely during the the cheddaring process. So try that. That will help knit your curd together. Bruce says, G'day, Bruce. Kim says, it's so cold in the house, I think your camera has steamed up. I think it might have just been out of focus, honey. There's no steam on the camera. But yeah, thanks. I should have read that a lot earlier and put my hand closer to the camera. But I think it's better in focus now. Thank you. Where are we? Kevin has said, made cloth banded cheddar with vegetable shortening. Tons of blue mold on the banding after 6 weeks. Should I remove the banding and vac pack or just leave it? Look, from the first experience that I had, Kevin, yeah, I would actually take the banding. If the blue mold starts to make the cheese inside soft, then yeah, take the banding off and backpack it, because the last thing you want is your cheddar to taste like a blue if that's what you're aiming for. However, if you're up for a bit of nature, then let it do its thing and see what it comes out with. But traditionally, the molds usually are grey and white type molds on the banding itself. Not so much blue, and yeah, blue can seep in and affect it. Thomas says, do you own a penguin? Huh? No. Charles, g'day. How are you? Kevin is back again in the process of doing a honey rubbed Montasio. Will keep you posted on the progress about 6 months. I've actually got that slated to do in a couple of weeks' time, so I'll be doing a honey rubbed Montasio as well, Kevin. So yeah, that'll be good to compare notes. Goodness me, I'm so far behind, but that's good. George says, any cheese that can age in a normal domestic fridge? Yeah, definitely, George. There's a whole video on it called beginner's cheeses you can make without a cheese fridge. If Kim can find the link, if she hasn't already, and place that up for George. And there's heaps. There's lots. Okay. Oh, I think the penguin comment was because it was so cold. No, that's funny. Thanks for the link for the thermophilic culture, Kim. That's lovely. Paul says, my Fontina after 3 weeks has a 1/4 inch rind. What's 1/4 inch is about 1/2 centimetre. Yes, Kim? Oh, thank you. Notes in class. Right. Sorry. Just had to read the note that was given to me by my producer. Okay. Yep. We'll talk about that in a sec. So your 1/4 inch, that's about 1/2 centimetre, with a runny paste underneath the rind and large wrinkles on the surface. Is that normal? I backpacked it and will continue to mature it. Thanks. No, that's not normal at all. It should be a fairly solid sort of rind. Don't know what's going on there. Sounds like it might have got infected by something, but yeah, that's weird. Alex says, if I want to make a truffle oil cheese, when should I add it? You should mill it in with the curds just before pressing, or if you've got, well, truffle oil is very expensive, but what you can do is rub it on the rind of the cheese. That'll impart some flavour. So every week when you check it and turn it, then rub some truffle oil in it. But I would tend to mix a little bit in with the curds itself. If you've got some shaved truffles, then definitely you can put it into the mill it in with the curds. Maybe a stir curd farmhouse cheddar style would work the best. It would get in there. So some of the other cheeses, harder ones as well, would probably lend to it as well. Okay. So I've got to stop for a sec because Kim want me to do the note. Let me just put a placeholder where I am. Okay. Kim says, I think you should explain the reasons for delays in cheese making book number 2. Yes, I can do that. And the reason for the delay is that, as some of you may know, that our son Ben, who's 19, was diagnosed with a deep vein thrombosis after some surgery. So we've really been looking after him since March is when it occurred. And now we found out that he has a blood clotting disorder as well. So, which is called, oh my good, antiphospholipid syndrome, which is better known as Hughes syndrome, which is quite rare. So currently we're trying to go through the paces of all this, sorting out his it's called INR. I can't remember what it stands for, but he's doing he's on warfarin, so he's doing lots of blood tests every day. So yeah, unfortunately I haven't had as much time as I would like to, so that's why the book has kind of been delayed. I know I've been saying that for years, but this has been a bit of a downer, I suppose. We're trying to get on top of it, but yeah. So send out good wishes to our son Ben, because he's having a rough time of it, unfortunately. But we're getting there. We're chins up. We're getting there. Anyway, so moving right along, and thanks for that. Thanks for letting me do that. That's what this community is all about. Anyway, Matthew says, in the Netherlands, the only mesophilic culture I can get has instructions that needs me to soak it in a litre of milk for 24 hours to make a mother culture. Is this method okay? Well, if the instructions say so, Matthew, then yes, because there are 2 types of culture. There are mother cultures like you've got, and that'll ferment. And what you can do with your mother culture is you can freeze it into cubes in ice trays. And I think it's about 50 millilitres per ice cube, usually, depends on your ice tray, I suppose. And then you plonk those into the milk and let them melt and let the starter culture, do its thing, which is really cool. The other version is the direct vat inoculate, or DVI, or DVT. Not DVT, DVI, direct vat inoculated, which are the freeze-dried cultures that I tend to use. And they're perfectly fine as well. They work just as well. So, yeah. Okay, Sir Benjamin 33 says, hello, Cheeseman. My feta didn't come out crumbly like I wanted. What did I do wrong? Also, thanks for answering basically the same questions every week. You're a patient man. It's just part of what we do here. Everybody is a newbie at one stage, and newbie curd nerds need all the help they can get, I reckon, because it's a fairly steep sort of learning curve. And really, that's what Kim and I like to do, is to break down the learning curve and make it a lot simpler for people, because it is difficult to get information, especially in video form anyway. There's tons of books, but if you haven't got the patience to read books, then yeah, hey, go whatever format works. For your question, the crumbly feta, stir it a bit longer. So I think it's 20 minutes you stir it for in the recipe that I use. Stir it for 40 minutes, you'll get a very crumbly feta, because it'll expel more whey as you stir the curds. Okay? All right. Barightchus says, what is cheddaring? Cheddaring is a process where you meld the curds after you've drained the whey off them into a slab. You basically keep them slightly warm, and you turn the slab whilst it's draining every 15 minutes for an hour. And that expels more whey. It also makes the proteins meld together a little bit better than what they normally would if you had just pressed it. And it gives then the cheddar the texture that is associated with cheddar cheese. So that's what cheddaring is. Good doggo. Yes, she is a good doggo. Kevin says, any update on book number 2, or perhaps book number 3? Oh, right. So that's what prompted the note. Sorry. Yes. There you go. So that's what's going Larry from Deep South Texas says, when you brine a cheese, is there a recommended volume of brine per weight of cheese? Oh, right. So how much per litres of brine there is, right, or gallons, or what have you? Look, I tend to the answer is yes. There's kind of a minimum. 2 litres is the minimum that I use of brine per kilogram of cheese. You definitely need to have enough salt in the water and enough water so that the salt penetrates into the cheese itself. 2 litres is what I recommend be the absolute minimum, because you just won't get enough salt absorption otherwise. The more brine you've got, that's fine. The salt will only absorb into the cheese at a certain rate, and that's time and density of the cheese. So you'll see that when I make denser cheeses, things like parmesan, they take a lot longer to brine than something like a Gouda or an Edam or Havarti. They don't take very long to brine at all because they're a lot softer, less denser cheeses. Okay, Cheese Daddy, that says, besides aging, is there something they do to make cheese extra sharp? Depends on the type of cheese. If they want to make a sharp Italian hard cheese, then there'll either be lipase in the raw milk, or they'll add calf or kid lipase to the cheese, and that'll give it a piquant flavour, piquant, which means spicy in Italian, so, or hot. So that's what they'll add. But for things like the cheddar style cheeses, then age is what makes the sharpness. As the cheese breaks down and rots, then the sharpness is produced by the breakdown in the fats and the proteins within the cheese. Brugg says, many thanks, have to log off. First time listener, but have been enjoying your videos. Ciao from New Jersey, and thanks to Ruth C for the introduction to you, Bruce. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Patricia says, my stout cheddar does have surface cracks where some of the curd fingers meet. My heart wants to wax it, but my head says vac pack. Would you dare wax a cheddar that has cracks between some curds, Gav? Yeah, I would. I have in the past, before I discovered vac packing. Look, vac packing won't hurt it either, Patricia. I think you won't have any issues either way, really. You won't get too much. It depends on how big the fissures are between the curds. If they're rather large, if we're talking about 2 or 3 millimeters, then I would vacuum pack it. But if they're only superficial surface cracks, you can wax it. It's no big deal. Kevin says, does Camembert or Brie both need Penicillium candidum and Geotrichum candidum, or only one or the other? Well, it's a personal preference, really, Kevin. I tend to find that the Geotrichum candidum prevents something called skin slip, which tends to happen sometimes if you only use Penicillium candidum and your cheese is too moist. You get this thing called skin slip. So the white mold will slip off, the skin will slip off the cheese. So by using Geotrichum candidum, it sends its little roots into the cheese. The mold sends its roots into the cheese and keeps the skin on. So I tend to use Geotrichum candidum as well as Penicillium candidum. The Geotrichum adds a little bit more mushroomy sort of flavour as well, which is quite desirable in those sorts of cheeses. It's very nice. David says, once well brined, should feta be stored dry or in water? I tend to always store my feta in the 10% brine, always. Otherwise, it dries out. It goes mouldy, actually, when it comes into surface with oxygen. So make sure that you flip it every couple of weeks as well when you've got it in your brine. Or in your brine, add a layer of olive oil on top, and that will seal off the oxygen exchange between the brine and the atmosphere. So yeah, always store it in the brine. once it's absorbed salt, it can't add any. It can't absorb any more. There's only so much salt that the cheese will absorb. Like I said, if you think it's too salty, then just soak it in milk. It'll be fine. Grilled chicken breast says, is there any way to properly add some form of dried aged meat to cheese without it going rancid? Um, yeah, there's actually who did that? Jove, who runs a channel. I don't know how active he is lately. Called Job, Jobes, Job's Cheese Lab. Um, he made a bacon cheddar, I think, or bacon gouda. I'm not too sure. Gouda. Not too sure where the link to the video is, but I wonder if Kim can just do a quick search of the YouTubes and just find the bacon cheese on Job's Cheese Lab is the channel name. That'd be great. But yeah, there is a way of doing it. Probably best to add it to the cheese so post process the cheese afterwards. That's what most commercial mobs do anyway. Ben says, I was watching your stout cheddar video and made me wonder, do you ever experiment without knowing how it will work out? For example, what would happen if you added the stout earlier? Well, if I had to add the stout earlier from experience, the curd probably wouldn't have set at all. The alcohol will have interfered with the coagulation. If I had to add the stout during stirring, it probably would have inhibited the curds from shrinking like they should have. So, yeah, look, it's great to experiment, but I kind of know that if I added the alcohol beforehand, then all sorts of chaos would have ensued. I kind of like to stick to what is tried and true. People have been making cheese for thousands and thousands of years, and they kind of know from their experimentation. As the saying goes, we all stand on the shoulders of giants as far as science goes and innovation. So we stand on the generations that are previous to us, so not changing something that works. But yeah, good question. Joel says, hi from Africa, Gavin. Africa's a big place, Joel. Where specifically are you? I have been experimenting with mozzarella using citric acid and fromage vegetables rennet. Fromage. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I know the one. The 50-litre tablet ones. My problem is, how long do I drain the curds before removing from the pot to avoid end rubbery? Unfortunately, quick mozzarella is mainly always rubbery and very hard to avoid. If you want traditional, true, real dinky dye mozzarella, then you're going to have to use the traditional method. And you're going to have to use buffalo milk if you want it to be soft and smooth. Very similar to the, let me get this right, Shore River buffalo mozzarella that I tried during the Cheese a Day challenge, which was sensational mozzarella. It just blew my freaking mind. It was really good. So unfortunately, quick mozzarella will always tend to be rubbery. Try and reduce the amount of rennet if you can. That will fix some of the rubbery problem, but that's just what it is. It's a quick and dirty mozzarella method. Never meant to be the same as real mozzarella, unfortunately. Craig says, ripening boxes I use with a pop-up lid. I drill a small hole about 1 centimetre from the bottom to allow the carbon dioxide out with the lid up, and it allows the box to breathe and nearly stops all the moisture. Oh, that's really cool. So I know what you mean. So just above the rack where it sits, just drill a single hole, and yeah, the carbon dioxide, because it's heavier than air, when it sinks, then it will tend to go out the little hole. So very clever. Well done, Craig. Clayton says, hi, Gavin. No questions here, but your videos rock. Thanks, Clayton. Appreciate it. Adin Rose says, is there any reason not to use the alternate cheddaring process you showed in your stout cheddar recipe? It seems easier and cleaner. No reason whatsoever. You go ahead and use it. So just use if you want to. I think it was a lot easier. I found it easier, a lot less mucking around. The curds knit together a lot better. For me, they did anyway, because they were. And if you don't soak it in stout, then it'll be even better because, the curds will knit together better because they didn't have that time, 45 minutes to cool down. I didn't keep the curd over any heat or anything like that when it was resting, when the stout was resting with it. Maybe I should have just kept it over a warm sink of water, just to, some of that steam might have kept it a little bit warmer. But they tend to knit together fairly well. But if you didn't have the stout at room temperature, then it'll knit together perfectly. But yeah, you use it for any cheddar now, it'll be fine. Wilma Charlie says, hi Gavin, what cheeses would I substitute a normal mesophilic culture to an aromatic culture? Well, it all depends, because aromatic starter culture tends to have, I've got to remember what it is, Lactobacillus lactis subspecies diacetyl, I think that is, might not be the entire name, but what that tends to do is not only create a buttery flavour in the cheese, it'll change the texture of the cheese, it also tends to produce gas, so it'll produce CO2. You may get some eye formation or some cracks or splitting within the cheese. So just be careful when you do any substitutes. Let's see what happens there. Holly's well rested for the period, obviously. You're okay, Holly? Yep. Right, she's fine. Okay. So just be careful when you do substitutes. You got to remember that aromatic mesophilic starter culture acts in a different way, and no pun intended. What is my favourite British cheeses? Oh, there's so many of them. I just don't know. That's pretty cool. Kim's announcing stuff that I haven't even got to yet. So I'm just still getting to the question. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Dumley29 says, hey, Gavin, can you give a quick overview of the different types of culture are and what might make you choose one over the other? There's a whole video on that, Dumley. You can go and check that out. Kim, if you can find the link to the starter cultures for cheese making video, that will be absolutely fantastic. Kevin says, George, you can make bel paese, mature at 4 degrees. It is excellent. Yes, indeed. Karen says, too funny. With my kafili, I did follow what you did on the new cheddar video. I kept it warm and I did break up the slabs for hand milling. Oh, okay. I also used gallon jugs of hot water for pressing the weight to keep the curds warm. Well, don't quite know what happened there then, Karen. Could maybe too much whey have been expelled during stirring? Not sure. That's the only thing I can think of. Marianne says, Gavin, could you explain flocculation, not flocculation? I don't know what that is. Flocculation. Okay, so flocculation is a method that's been refined over the years, and I actually do have a video. It's not my video, but somebody else. I'll just bring it up. I don't know how loud it's going to be. So I've got a blog post. I'll just bring up screen number 2. There we go. So if you go to Little Green Cheese, there's a blog post, and I'll just grab the link there and shove that in the chat. Hopefully that came up. So flocculation method for better curd. There's a whole explanation on it. There's even a little video on what it does. The different factors. There's a multiplier, and it tells you when the thing. I'm not going to show the video, but figure it out. You'll figure it out. But anyway, read through that blog post, and you will have no issues figuring out what flocculation for cheese making is. And yeah, maybe I should do my own video on flocculation. It I'm back to my camera. There we are. Yeah, that would probably be pretty good. So yeah, let's write that down. Flock. And explain the process probably a little bit better in a full video myself. Okay. Okay. Alex says, "My prayers are with you and your family. Hope things work out." Yeah, look, I think so. I think so, Alex and Marianne and Ruth and everybody else that said um, great things or nice things for Ben. I'll get him to watch the replay. Okay. Rabbi said, "Can you split the culture envelope to be used several times?" Yeah, indeed, you can. We tend to when we send out our cultures, if they're just in one of those silver pouches, send out one of these little specimen jars. Put your culture in that, and then put it in the freezer. Make sure the lid's on tight, of course, and you'll find that it won't rehydrate. It'll stay in a powder form, and you can just use it. Use mini measuring spoons and measure it out of that. That's what I do. Don't fold down your sachet and sticky tape it. The moisture will get in from the freezer and it'll wreck it. Okay. Lots of well wishes. Thank you so much. Now, Kim has announced, even before I got there, and like 20 minutes ago, new show starting Saturday and a new moderator on Wednesday morning. So starting next week, Mr. Ben will be taking over. Kim says, "I will be moderating on Saturday mornings." So Alex says, "Will there be two shows?" Henrik says, "Hello from Norway." Hello, Henrik. Yes, there will be two shows. That is the announcement. Very cool. We are going to two shows, and it won't inhibit on my cheese making activities because I don't really start making cheese until about noon on Saturday or Sunday anyway. So, a show in the morning at 8:30 Australian time is fairly simple for us. I'm normally up well before then anyway. So, yeah, won't be too much of a hassle. And we're getting so many questions. Like, I'm only at questions at 9:07 on my little chat, and it's 9:22, and I finish the show in 8 minutes' time. So, I'm not going to get to all the questions. Hopefully, that having two shows, we'll be able to do that. That'll be good. Okay, Carol says, "Hi Gavin, what happens if the cheese is pressed less than 50 pounds, please? Can I repress it?" If you're talking about a cheese that needs to be pressed at 50 pounds, can I repress it? You're just going to have to get it to press until the rind closes, basically. You don't want too much moisture in those harder, semi-hard, harder cheeses because they tend to weep during maturation and don't get the texture you're after. You're really after a nice, close, textured cheese. That's why we press it at, say, 50 pounds or as heavy as you possibly can. Dex says, "Wasabi, stem root, and Szechuan pepper studded cheese." Oh, I'll tell you what, Szechuan pepper is amazing. One of my favourite Chinese dishes, and I don't even know if they do it in China, is Kung Pao chicken with proper Szechuan peppercorns in them. Makes your tongue go numb. It's amazing. And hot and big dried chilies and peanuts. It's lovely. That would be amazing in a cheese, Szechuan pepper. Okay, we've got a super chat, and it's from Alex. Thank you, Alex. And Alex says, "Thank you for the extra show." No problems at all, Alex. Our pleasure. We should have done it years ago, but I suppose the chat didn't get so busy back then. With about 60 to 70 people watching each show now, it kind of does. So, but you're welcome. Ruth says, "How do you get that nice brown rind on Gruyere?" Well, Ruth, I found that it tended to happen anyway. As I kept washing it every week, I think that was what was in the instructions. It tended to go brown all by itself. Just the style of cheese. It happens. But yeah, as long as you wash it with a simple brine solution, I think it worked out all right. Okay. Where are we? Kim's putting links and also where are we? Where I'm up to? Craig says, Kim, that's great news. 2 shows a week. I can't always do a Wednesday. That's fantastic. Great to see you, Gavin. Have a good one. Thanks, Polis. More curd nerds can participate. That's indeed true. Europe, not having such a good time of it because it's quite late in Europe and UK at the moment, and it's very hard. I tried to do, because we're in Australia, of course. I looked at the time and date meeting app you get online, trying to get a mutual time for everybody. It's almost impossible, obviously. So this seems to be the best time, 8:30 our time. Seems to be the best time for everybody, and I know Europeans have to stay up late if they want to watch it, unfortunately. But as soon as we go back to daylight savings, it'll be like 10 p.m. for them, and it'll all be sweet. Mike's Big Mouth says, hi everyone, good to see you, Gavin. Thank you. It's 2 a.m. in Nairobi, Kenya. Quick question, is it possible to copyright a cheese variety outside of the USA, Europe, etc.? I don't know of any other standards besides the European ones. That I don't even think they have them in the USA. You can copyright a cheese by maybe putting through a patent, but other than that, you can trademark brands. But as for area of AOC or DOP or whatever the rating standard is in each country, they don't have those really outside of Europe, unfortunately. Kim's found the link to the bacon cheese. That's fantastic. Kevin Promnick says, where do you get your vertical curd harp? I get it from Steve Benz. Kim should maybe find the link. I'm not sure. Will I? No, I haven't got time for a link. Sorry, mate. It's only 3 minutes to go. My goodness. And that's about all the time we have. Ruth says, I'll miss you on this show, Kim. Yeah, Kim will be training Ben there for a while. I think we're close to the end. We've got 3 minutes to go. Northman says, is it possible to wrap a cheese within a cheese to get a layered effect? Yeah, if you go and have a look at my marbled cheddar video, it's not layered per se, but it is a mixture, and it looks amazing. I think a lot of people on the chat have made it before and have really enjoyed making the marbled cheddar. And you'll see, there's colour variations. It kind of looks like a planet with continents and oceans. Very nice. Okay, so lucky last question. Here we go. Jordan says, I've gone all in, ordered Floridanica, Geotrichum candidum, Penicillium candidum, Penicillium roqueforti, French ash, Propionic shamani. Sorry, I ordered from New England cheese making supply. But you're my inspiration. No drama, mate. Whatever's quicker to get to you. We could have shipped to the US. It would have been fine. But that's okay. I don't mind. They're a nice company, New England Cheese Making Supply. They do a very good service for the cheese making community. When will the extra show be on? David, the extra show will be on Saturday mornings at 08:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So same time this one's on Wednesday, but on Saturday morning. So that's when the extra show is going to be on. We haven't changed the time. We wanted to capture at least Australia, New Zealand, and the Americas. So we'll get most of the viewers, maybe some of the Europeans and Africans, but not the Asians. It'll be too early for them, unfortunately. Okay, so Kim's giving me the wind up. So don't forget to, my big thanks goes to everybody who watched the show. So catch the next one on Saturday morning. If you haven't catch this one and you're watching the replay, then Saturday morning, 0800 Australian Eastern Standard Time, I will put there'll be a little countdown thing anyway on on the live page, and it'll tell you when the next show is. So Kim's giving me the wind up. Don't forget, if you want to get any supplies, pop over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au, which is our cheese making and all sorts of shop. So there it is there, littlegreenworkshops.com.au, and the cheese making supplies are a lovely category here. We've got lots of good stuff. But yeah, you can check it all out, littlegreenworkshops.com.au. You can support us via Patreon or YouTube memberships, and that helps keep the show going. You can donate as little as, I think it's $1 on Patreon, and if you want to go all in, go YouTube memberships, which is $5 US a month, and you get early access on both those platforms to all the cheese making videos. You can buy merch, very much like the cup, and T-shirts and all sorts of stuff over at Teespring. You can probably see the merch shelf down below. You can go and check that out. And that's it. And we will see you Saturday. Thank you, Kim, for the lovely reminder there. We won't see you beforehand, but we'll see you next Saturday. Thanks for everybody for posting in their questions. Without your questions, we wouldn't have a show. So fantastic. And thanks from me and Kim and Ben. And we will see you on Saturday morning at the same time. All right. Thanks, Curd Nerds. See you later.